music videos were born. The synthesizer made D-Sound, and artists like Culture Club and Wang Chung hit it big. Welcome back to the 80s. Hi, I'm John Taylor, and this is Then and Now. Remember me? More of my Duran Duran days a little later. First, VH1's asked me to take a trip back to the 80s. We've caught up with some of our favorite bands to find out where they've been, what they're doing, and if they're still making music. Trust me, there will never be another decade quite like the 80s. And while the music was changing, so were the styles. In the 80s, making a fashion statement meant anything from wearing wigs, lots of makeup, and dresses, even if you were a man.
I just wear what I want to wear. Sometimes I wear wigs, sometimes I wear hats. You know, I mean, I'm like a sort of, you know, $6 million pop star.
People confuse the fact that you dress up, they think you're feminising yourself. You're just changing yourself, really. Men don't have that much chance to express themselves dress-wise. I reserve the right to do that, whatever job I do.
But breaking new ground sometimes carries a price.
I got so fed up with people saying, well, I don't get it. Why do you gotta be so different? Why do you gotta wear those funny clothes?
But whether the look was glam, pop, or rock, it was the clothes, the hats, the accessories that offered inspiration to teenagers who were discovering a new outlet for self-expression, the music video.
Actually, we were ahead of our time. We were grungy, we wore flannel shirts, we didn't shave, we had bad breath. Years ahead of our time.
But if clothes make the man, what about the hair?
We broke ground with hairdos. I think we were close enough to fashion, but different enough to be noticed. And in those days, the more we got noticed, the more we tried to get noticed.
At one point in about 83, 84, we were more known for our haircuts than our music, and that was definitely started to take over. I think we did have a sort of a flight case full of amps, but 2 flight cases full of hairspray.
Sometimes it would be fun to go out and maybe try and do my hair like that again and just run on and do something, and people would go, oh my, that's the guy. But then I always think, that's gone, that's the 80s.
I love the 80s, man. I just don't think I could do it again.
Now, I know a little about the 80s myself. You see, in 1980, I got together with some friends back home in Birmingham, England, and started a band of my own. We called it Duran Duran.
Please tell me now, is there something I should know? Some like it hot, some like it hard, some like it hot.
As you could see in the montage, Duran Duran did everything a pop group could ever set out to do. I was lucky. I had 2 bands in the 80s. The Power Station with Robert Palmer and Tony Thompson was another great success for me. But after 15 years in Duran Duran, I'm now my own man. I have a studio here in Santa Monica, California, and I'm busy producing my own music. But striking out on your own is never an easy choice. Just ask former Culture Club lead singer, Boy George.
I think what you have in your mind is far more important than what you wear. I mean, I've always thought that. You can dress someone up, but they're still boring. They've got no personality.
One thing Boy George doesn't lack is personality. During the 80s, his flamboyant image as the lead singer of Culture Club captured the world's attention as much as his music.
Do you really want to hurt me?
I never thought that little girls would start screaming at me and throwing teddy bears on stage. I mean, that was a total surprise. That wasn't what I was aiming for. But you know, when it happens, you kind of go with it.
And go with it he did. Culture Club's debut album, Kissing to Be Clever, gave them 3 top 10 hits, and its follow-up, Colour by Numbers, sold over 6 million records. It was enough to turn the sexually ambiguous Boy George into a pop diva.
Culture Club was fantastic, and at times it was abysmal. It was extremes. I think extremes create extremes. The problem with the kind of success that I had in Culture Club is that you lose control of your life.
And by 1986, Boy George was out of control. His troubled relationship with Culture Club drummer John Moss broke the band up. And though he had a solo hit in 1987, his outrageous lifestyle had taken its toll. He was battling a drug addiction that took 2 years to beat.
Well, for me, if I look at the situation, I think, well, you know, somebody up there was trying to say to me, value your life. You know, value your existence. And that's really what I learned from that.
I know all there is to know about the crying.
His big comeback came in 1993 with the title song for the film The Crying Game. Since then he's released a critically acclaimed album, a tell-all autobiography, and holds a steady gig as one of England's top DJs.
There are so many kind of cliches in rock and roll. You know, you get to the top, you sort of reach the pinnacle of your success. It's not really going to make you feel better about yourself until you actually find some really kind of basic way of loving yourself. Actually being able to look in the mirror and say, well, actually, you're all right.
Coming up, some things never change, or do they? Check out Dead or Alive, Then and Now. This is VH1's Then and Now. Hi, I'm John Taylor. You may remember me from Duran Duran. In 1980, a group of guys got together, experimented with different instruments and synthesizers. And before they knew it, they were signed to a major record label, had one of the most played music videos on TV, and were performing in sold-out stadiums. Now that's an overnight success. Check out A Flock of Seagulls.
We were 4 guys from Liverpool who knew nothing about anything except what we did. Play our own music our own way, and we never expected to be that successful.
But these 4 guys from Liverpool were that successful. In 1982, their debut album went gold and won them a Grammy.
I think Iran will always be remembered because it was groundbreaking in its day, and whatever you do that's original, right at the beginning of something, will always be remembered.
And the same can be said for their follow-up hit, Wishing, although it came together rather simply.
I went on a date, and the girl I went out with had a photograph, and I tried to get the photograph off her because I was going on tour. I said, well, give me the photograph. She's like, no. So I just went off and wrote the song saying I wish I had that photograph, basically. I wrote a lot of those songs when I didn't know what I was doing at all. They just came out, and songs still come to me like that, but now I think personally that the songs are better. You know, whether more people are hearing them or not, it's a different thing. We've always played clubs, even when the 80s was probably the worst thing you could ever think of. We were playing clubs, tiny little clubs. Now we're doing basically just festivals. People say you're still successful, but the band's not as big. But I think I'm more successful because I'm happier with the songs I'm writing than I was with Iran. And it's kind of interesting to look back at what there was the whole field of that music and see who's coming forward now. You know, quite surprised that we're one of them.
Another band who's still performing and putting out new music is Dead or Alive. Lead singer Pete Burns struggled with success in the 80s, but in the 90s he's updated his approach to music and his looks. They're not called glam for nothing. They got the clothes, the hair, the makeup and the sound that's captivated audiences worldwide for nearly 2 decades. And nothing about Dead or Alive is boring, especially not their music.
Our music is a mixture of pop music, dance, techno, rock music. It's a unique fusion, and there's nobody that sounds like we sound. There's nobody who makes records like we make.
their 1985 record, Youthquake, that catapulted the band to the front page and the top of the charts. And no one was more surprised by their instant success than Dead or Alive.
Well, I didn't believe we would ever have any mainstream commercial success. I never believed we'd get a #1 record. And when it did happen, my first thought was, oh, God, what's going to happen now?
Well, what happened was years of touring, numerous albums, and a staying power that's carried them through the 90s. Their latest CD, Cleopatra, includes a cover of David Bowie's Rebel Rebel and a 90s remix of their 80s hit, You Spin Me Round.
You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round.
There's been a great demand from a lot of people for us to re-release the track. It's one of the records in the 80s that kind of shook the world and changed the face of dance music.
And change is what Dead or Alive's Pete Burns does best.
Of course I look different now than I did 10, 12 years ago. People evolve and they change themselves. It's like living in an apartment and you might get bored with the apartment, so you paint the wall a different colour.
While their looks continue to evolve, one thing remains constant for the band: a loyal following.
We played 55,000 Tokyo Dome. That's the normal size. But we like to play small venues. That's why we come back and kind of gone back to basics.
We can make a good living just going out and playing to people. We still have a very hardcore base of fans who come to see us. I don't really want another #1 again. If it happens, it just happens. But I'm not hungry for it in the 90s.
It's been great. We're still doing what we want to do. We have complete control over what we want to do. You know, that's the way your career should be.
Like Dead or Alive, there were a lot of artists from the 80s who learned that having control is more important than having success. And the key is finding the balance. Howard Jones is an artist that has always worked at keeping his music honest and positive.